I have to. Hold on, wait a second. Are we live? Yes, we are live. Woohoo! Yay! Hi, everybody. Hey to the chat. Everyone say hi to the chat.
Hi, Chad.
Hi, Chad.
Hello.
Hey there.
Hello.
Great. Oh, fantastic. All right. So, by the way, Jeff Ryan, I want to thank you. That was very, very incredibly generous of you before we got started. All right. So, welcome to the very first group video chat here on Beyond the Trailer. Now, as some of you might recall, during the pandemic, we kind of did something similar to this where you guys would call me on my phone. We would talk over Zoom or Skype or something like this. Look at Eric. Eric doesn't follow me on Twitter, and I had no idea what was happening today. I love it. So I started out doing BTT Movie Club, which had its very first episode on Sunday, where we talked about Godzilla -1. And it went really well. And in fact, a number of the gentlemen you see before you were on Sunday's BTT Movie Club. Jonathan was there, Daniel, Eddie, Alex, and Fran. All are pros at this point. And then it went so well, I was like, wouldn't it be great to do this during a live stream? But I didn't want to just surprise people, so I needed people to volunteer in that regard. So those gentlemen said they would come back. I opened it up to other members who might want to participate today, and some very brave people jumped in here. So we have Anthony, Jason joining us as well, Aubrey. Some of you might recognize some of them from the streams, and then Carl. Oh yeah, and Matthew and Carl. So this is just very exciting to have everybody here, and they're going to introduce themselves to you in just a moment. Just so you know, just to give you a heads up, so we're just trying this out. If it works, we'll do more of these once a month. You know, we're giving it a whirl. All right. And if we continue to do them in the future, you might be in one of these squares. All right. We're going to have Sarah, you say that now, but I bet you're inspired that you would not be too shy. I think, you know, everybody on Sunday was real nice. I'm just saying to those of you who are here today, everybody on Sunday was really nice. So also there will be all of us will be keeping an eye on the live chat, myself in particular. You will have polls. I have polls where I'll be asking you as well as the people who are on screen. And then at the end, you'll be able to ask some questions as well. So I want to start out with everyone introducing themselves, and we're going to go in order. They can't see the order, so I'm going to tell them how to speak because I can see the order that they're on screen. So Anthony, you're up first. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Anthony. I've been watching Beyond the Trailer for 10 years now, and I'm very thankful for that. I definitely think it inspired me going to film school in Southern California, which I just graduated in May. And yeah, I've been a Star Wars fan, I would say, since The Force Awakens came out. I think that really energized my fandom. I think there's something really special about seeing.
Just introduce yourself first. We haven't gotten to that yet.
Okay.
I love your enthusiasm, but it's going to take too long. We got a lot of peeps here.
You're good.
All right, so Anthony, love it. Anthony was showing us how to raise our hands on Zoom earlier. It was pandemonium. All right, Jonathan, please introduce yourself.
Thanks, Grace. I appreciate you having me. Jonathan Irvin from California. I'm a comic book reader, sci-fi, superhero fan, obviously big Batman fan, and I'm glad to be here.
Jason, thanks for joining us. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name's Jason. I run the reaction channel Popcorn Roulette. We've just had somebody react to Star Wars for the first time, which is amazing, and I've been watching Grace for almost 10 years.
Yay, yes, awesome. Popcorn Roulette, last minute edition. He was on those community notifications because somebody dropped out at the last minute. Because if you can't make it, you never know. So keep your eye on the posts because if you want to jump in and get a spot like Jason. Not today though, but in the future. All right, next up, Aubrey.
Hi, everyone. So excited to be here. My name's Aubrey. I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. So if I start sweating, it's because it is probably 100 degrees outside. But I'm a filmmaker. I'm a social media content creator, and I grew up with Star Wars. So just happy to be here.
Aubrey is a frequent commentator, Aubrey Smalls. So some of you might recognize the handle. All right, next up, Daniel.
Oh, hey everybody. My name is Daniel or Danny. I live in South Florida. I'm a college professor, political science government teacher. So I'm excited to talk about Star Wars and politics and how they kind of coincide together.
Oh, you're
as you
going
can
there,
tell-
Dan.
as we can imagine. And I'm a lifelong BTT fan. Grace, everything you've done in this community. Longtime stream viewer, so just happy to be here and to be able to discuss this with all of you.
Next, Matthew.
Hi, I'm Matt Torres. I discovered your channel sometime around the pandemic. I've been a fan ever since. I'm from Denver, Colorado, and I'm really excited to be here. I thank you for including me in this.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Everyone's so great. The BTT community is just the best. I just love talking to all of you. And this is such a cool new addition to our being able to interact, like to actually see you and for everyone to see you. All right, next up, Eddie.
Hi guys.
He's
I'm
out of the
Eddie.
car. Eddie was in a car when we started.
Yeah, rush hour traffic in Atlanta. So I am originally from New York, living in Atlanta. I'm a huge sci-fi, pretty much super nerd. Celebrating Dragon Con. If you guys don't know, it's the biggest convention of the year on the East Coast regarding pop culture, Star Wars, and all MCU and everything else. So I'm just happy that Grace allowed me to help discuss great things with you guys. She's fantastic. I love her.
Aw. Is
But
Dragon Con going on now?
It starts tomorrow morning. It goes all the way through Labor Day. 5
And
days.
you're Heinz Adventures, right?
Adventures. Think about
Adventures.
the word adventures. Yes.
Love it. All right, Alex, you're next.
Hi there, I'm Alex. I am a university student in South Florida. I'm a major fan of Grace. I've been watching you for ages, and I'm a major Star Wars fan as well, and can't wait to talk about this.
All right, Carl.
Hey there, I am Carl. I am originally from Detroit, Michigan. Now I reside in Georgia. And Grace, I was a fan of yours before I knew I was a fan of yours. So you wrote a Warcraft short story that is one of my favorite World of Warcraft things.
Really?
Yes,
Oh,
I
that means
love
so
that
much
story.
to me.
And then I've stumbled across your channel and I'm like, okay, this is pretty cool. I like this. And then I went back and reread that one day. I'm like, wait a minute, I know who this is. So yeah.
That was one of the first, that's how I broke into writing comics. And I feel
Great
bad
story.
that those things went out. A lot of those ways to get into comic book writing have fallen away. And it's just made it even harder because, you know, doing stuff like Tokyo Pop's manga was a great place to break into comic book writing. All right. And then last but certainly not least is Fran.
Okay, I'm Fran Likes Pepsi. Some of you may recognize the name. I'm 21. I'm a law student, and I am not really a Star Wars fan, so it's gonna be interesting.
Oh, and still in the conversation. I love it. Keeping it interesting. Oh, that's
Yeah.
great. That's so fun. Yes, Fran is very generous. Fran gifted a ton of memberships last week.
Oh, please.
Our last live stream. So some of you are probably in here thanks to Fran. All right. So I think, you know, we're going to get started here. All right. Now, the first thing I'm going to ask, and we're going to have a poll. So you guys get, so you guys in the live chat and those of you watching. All right. So the question we're going to start with, and the person, we're going to go in order. So Anthony, you're up first. I want to know, are you a Star Wars fan? And if so, what made you a fan? Try to keep your answer around a minute. Okay. Because we want to make sure we get through all this stuff. All right. And I'll put the poll up right now while Anthony speaks.
So yeah, I think that Force Awakens was a big deal for me. I think because there's nothing like experiencing Star Wars in the theater for the first time, and for me that was it. I was 13 years old when it happened, and it was just such a fanfare. It was so exciting. It's back when everybody was kind of on the same page with Star Wars, which are rare moments in the fandom. And then I quickly started and I made my own movies with my family and friends. We made our own Star Wars movies. So it really was just a fun way to bring people together. There's something about these big movies that, you know, brings everybody together because everybody wants to see Star Wars. I think that's what made it so special. So that's where my fandom started, and it grew into the movies and the shows and everything else from there.
I love it. You gave me just enough time to type. And that was excellent. Very, very good. Very relatable. All right. The poll is up. Anyone watching can vote in the poll. You don't have to be a member to vote in the poll, as many of you know. Some of you are sometimes like, we know Grace. Well, some people are new and don't know. All right. Jonathan.
I am a Star Wars fan. I wouldn't say diehard and I wouldn't say casual. Somewhere in between. Growing up, I grew up in Flint, Michigan. Carl, go blue. I had a chaotic childhood, so I watched movies, superhero movies specifically, to kind of escape that. And I love Star Wars mainly because of Luke Skywalker. He's a superhero, in my opinion. I love the Jedi. I love the mysticism. I love the lightsabers, the rebels. I like the David versus Goliath, the rebels against the Empire, the redemption of Darth Vader. So those are themes that I like. So I'm a big fan of the lore, not necessarily a fan of every movie, but definitely the lore. So it kind of grew on me due to the fact that I grew up with it in childhood, something that I could daydream about. So that's why I'm a Star Wars fan, because I needed an escape, and this was a great way to do that.
I love it. I want to say, everybody says, just like there's Batman and Superman fans, there's Luke Skywalker and Han Solo fans. So just with a show of hands, we'll do either one. Okay. So who's a Luke Skywalker fan? Almost everybody. That's incredible. That's fascinating. All right. Who's a Han Solo fan? Three. Oh, that's great. Jonathan, you can't like both.
Okay.
You gotta pick one. Who do you relate to?
I like
That's so
Solo.
funny. Well, no, yeah, you can like, I mean, like, who do you, I mean, I like Superman too, but like, who do you relate to,
Luke.
Do you want to do that? You guys want to do it again?
Yeah, Skywalker.
Okay. All right. Who do you relate to the most? You can love both of them. All right.
Skywalker.
Who's like Luke Skywalker's my man? Raise your hand. All right. Still pretty much everybody. That's fascinating to me, because I would have thought it would be the other way around. Who's Team Han Solo? So it's still the three of us. Me, Fran. That makes sense, Fran, because I even like Star Wars. That's funny. And Carl. Oh, that's great. Okay. All right. That was just very interesting to me. No wonder everybody got upset with the Luke character assassination. Ryan Johnson should have maybe taken a poll. All right. Next up, Jason.
I lifelong Star Wars fan. It was actually the first movie I ever saw when I was 3 years old. My father was in the Air Force doing fighter pilots and B-52s, and took me to see this movie because my older brother wanted to see it. And the story is, I was always a chatty Cathy, but I was absolutely silent in the movie theater, my eyes glued to the screen. They had never seen me so quiet. And I think I was just indoctrinated at that point. And to be able to see Empire Strikes Back at 6 and be 9 years old when Return of the Jedi came out, it was just, that arc of Luke Skywalker was just transforming. And it was a wonderful way to relate to my father that was, fighting, flying jets in real life.
Oh, that's really nice. That must have made you and your dad closer.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, he's not
Absolutely.
space dad, and he's like, close. All right. So
Top Gun,
Aubrey.
Top Gun was the, Star Wars on Earth was the pitch of making Top Gun. And my dad was like a goose. He was a backseater. He was a Rio. So, and then he was also James Earl Jones and Dr. Strangelove.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's so cool. Is your dad still with us?
He is. I take care of him, actually. I'm his caretaker.
Well, tell him we all said hi.
I will.
All right, Aubrey.
I grew up with Star Wars, but I honestly didn't care much for it. I remember liking Princess Leia, liking R2-D2, not liking anybody else in it. And then Force Awakens came out, and controversial opinion, guys. I loved Rey. Like, Rey was the reason I saw and had interest in The Force Awakens. But now I'm a filmmaker. I also have dwarfism, and there's so many people that I know in the industry who are little people who work on these films. So it's been really exciting, even though I might not love all of the projects that they make now, Star Wars, seeing my friends and people that I work with in, these behind the scenes roles as like these creatures or as these stunt performers is really interesting to me. And that's why I'm like really invested in Star Wars working out, because it does provide, I think, so many opportunities for people, and it brings so many people together. So yeah, I'm like that casual fan who just wants it to survive and wants it to do well, but I'm not like a deep super fan in the sense of like understanding the lore of it all. So I'm like a good medium.
Well, quick side note, just so quickly, how do you feel about them moving to like more digital and visual effects instead of practical, which would require hiring, specific performers from your community?
I think it's like I don't want to say too much because some of these situations, like I know the intimate details of, but I do think that there's a big disconnect sometimes when it comes to performers of different abilities or just performers in general. And I think Disney as a corporation, and any corporation, just wants to be cheap. And I think that's ultimately what it falls down to. So I think it's really important for people to be talking and advocating for not the erasure of real people working in these roles. And I think that should just be the bare minimum anyways, because it affects us now, but it will affect everybody like in 5 years. So
Oh yeah, everyone's gonna go digital, man. This is gonna be everybody.
Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs is gonna be all of y'all.
So next up, let's see here. Next would be Daniel. All right, Daniel.
Oh, hey everybody. So yeah, Danny here. I am generally a lifelong Star Wars fan. I grew up watching it with my parents. I was trying to think some of the few moments that really sold me, that made me a lifelong fan of this. And I have to say, I remember in high school going to see the prequels with one of my best friends, Brianna. And we watched this scene with Executive Order 66. And it was the first time that I really remember having a deep emotional reaction at like 14 years old to this Star Wars movie. And I was like, I have to follow this for the rest of my life. I'm a big video gamer. So whether it was when the Podcast Racer game came out on Nintendo 64 in the early 90s, or whether it was Star Wars, The Last Jedi Survivor or Battlefront 2 in the past couple years, the video games have always kind of kept me involved in the franchise in between installments of movies and shows. And the third thing I want to say that always sold me on Star Wars was C-3PO. A robot with anxiety is one of my favorite things to see on a movie.
That's great.
Even as a kid, loved the robots, and they've always continued that through the franchise. And I'm always excited to see all the different droids that they bring in and their personalities. And so that's me and Star Wars in a nutshell.
Okay, Matthew.
Hi. Yeah, I would say I probably qualify as a Star Wars fan. So I would say the moment it happened was somewhere in the mid 90s when I was a child. The Empire Strikes Back and the revelation that Darth Vader's the father, right? That probably got it all kicked off. And then from there, after Return of the Jedi, meeting up with some friends, getting into the extended universe, then KOTOR, the prequel trilogy. It's been there every step of the way. All the fanhood trajectory's just been on an upward steep curve, I would say, until maybe more recently. But yeah, I'd say I've been a part of the fandom solidly for pretty much my entire life.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. All right, Eddie. We see
All right.
this shirt, Eddie. Tell us the
Yeah.
story.
So me and Jason have something in common. We're both 50. I did the same path he did, except my parents would not let me watch Star Wars at age 3. They said, "Oh, you're too young. You'll have nightmares." I said, "No way." So when Empire Strikes came out, I watched it and had the nightmares that they said that was going to happen. But I just loved it. So when the VHS tapes came out, I got to watch Star Wars. So I guess I wrote it out of order. But that was the coolest trilogy of my life, of course, until Back to the Future came out. But I've been playing and watching Star Wars pretty much my whole life. Now, it's not as big as my fandom for Star Trek, but it's pretty up there. So I enjoy just the lore of, the heroes, the villains, and I like how they enhance the characters to make them not just so black and white. Like everybody has a side of gray. So I appreciate that with the newer Star Wars than it is now. But yes, being Gen X, yeah, we're team original trilogy all the way.
Yeah, it has turned into teams, very much original prequels and then today, which I don't know if that was the idea. Let's divide them all up. All right, so next up, Alex.
So I would say I'm a lifelong Star Wars fan. When I was really young, me and my family would gather up for movie nights, and I had only known the Return of the Jedi. They would keep renting Return of the Jedi, so I only knew that there was a Star Wars movie. And it wasn't until later that I found out about like A New Hope and the rest of the series, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!"
Watch the last one.
Yeah, it was my
cousin's
cousin's
your family
favorite
loves
movie.
Ewoks.
But and then one of the things that I adore is like being from DC and all, like I love the governmental structures and the politics of Star Wars, like
Ah,
loving that. And I mean you guys are talking we're talking about being more attuned to Luke or Han. For me, I'm Leia all the way. Like I love governmental politics. I love doing stuff for the community, doing stuff for the people, you know, so, stuff
true.
like that.
Leia doesn't get enough respect. My bad. I think a little in the studio, like they didn't give
I
her a
mean, she
line
got
until it was too
disrespected
late.
by the studio, I think, a little
I think
bit.
so too. I think so too. They kept tabling her until it was too late.
Yeah.
All right. Carl.
So I, like a lot of people, started watching Star Wars when I was a kid with my dad. We were poor, so we couldn't afford to actually, buy a copy. So we recorded it, and just I watched it on repeat as a kid. That was in the 90s, and then episode 1 came out, and it was my favorite thing for like the next long while. And I had to have everything. It was so cool. There was merchandise everywhere for it. Like you couldn't escape it. And between the movie and the games, like the games kept me with Star Wars. Up until, each movie would come out. I loved it. It's the only galaxy that can have everything from like every fantasy trope between knights and wizards and cowboys and witches. Like, it's awesome. I love Star Wars.
Which has got into a lot of trouble though. But yeah, but no, yeah, that's great. I love that. All right, so fittingly, Fran is gonna wrap us up here with the how you became a Star Wars fan by telling us how he has not become a Star Wars fan.
Okay, so
How have you
I
resisted, Fran? How have you resisted?
unlike my peers, I first got introduced to Star Wars through The Force Awakens, and I thought it was a pretty fun movie at the time. I was very like wowed by it, but then nothing about it ever clicked for me again. But I will say that was until I watched Rogue One, and that is my favorite project of Star Wars.
Yeah, I love it too.
Absolute favorite. And that's one of the reasons that if they decide to go into more of that direction, I would be very much a potential fan.
Oh, I love it. Okay, so there's hope. All right, so let me close the poll. Let me close the poll. All right, so the poll says, hold on. All right, 53% of the people watching are casual fans. 28% are hardcore fans. 15% says Star Wars is not really for them. And then 2% hates it. Okay. All right. So now we're going to move. Let's get our questions. Let's get our answers a little bit more fluid, a little shorter, so we can have a little bit more back and forth. Okay. So first off, I want to just do a raise of hands. I'm going to ask you how you feel about Star Wars today. And just so you know in advance, there are 4 choices: positive, slightly negative, and negative. Okay. All right. So who here feels fully positive about the direction of Star Wars today? You're like me with Borderlands, Jason. We almost had a full 0. Okay, that's fantastic. But you do you, Jason. I love it. Okay, so Jason feels good. All right, so who's slightly positive? That's pretty good. All right, we got 3. All right. Who's slightly negative? Okay, 4. That's the most we've had so far. I would put myself in that category. And who feels it's just a freaking disaster? Who's negative? Matthew? So Matthew and Jason are on the 2 sides of the different ends of the spectrum. So let's start with you guys. Matthew, why do you feel really bad about the direction of the franchise?
So I would say probably The Last Jedi is when it started. So like I mentioned before in my prior answer, everything's on an upward trajectory, everything's good. Force Awakens, I'll give that movie some credit, pretty solid. I liked that movie. I came out of that movie pretty happy. I think the treatment of Luke Skywalker's character was pretty rough. I think somehow Palpatine returning was pretty rough. I also think that The Mandalorian was kind of okay, but it was a little overhyped, I think, because people were starving for that redemption for Luke Skywalker. So I think it got a little overhyped. I don't think it was quite as good as a lot of my friends thought it was. And then after Mandalorian season 2, I've been not finding it to be a source of entertainment for me at all, I would say. So,
Are you still watching the content?
well, I'm trying. So like, what was the last show that came out was the Acolyte, right? So I made it to the 3rd episode and then I bowed out. So I'm still giving it a shot. I'm trying to like give it the opportunity to come back. But I think in the more recent shows like the Acolyte, Mandalorian season 3, and Ahsoka, I've been bowing out before they've completed. So
Oh, you didn't finish Ahsoka either? That's interesting. Well, I mean, at least you're trying them. You're trying them, Matt. You know, you give them a shot. All right,
Yep.
Jason, you're on the other side.
Yeah,
Why are things going great in your opinion?
yeah. Well, listen, I think I work a little bit in the industry, and I followed the industry for a real long time, and I know how hard it is to get anything made, and certainly love movie math and that side of it. And as somebody that lived, the first 4 decades of his life with only 6 Star Wars movies, in the last 10 years, to have so much content has just been exciting. I also, I'm probably definitely an outlier where I enjoy the sequel trilogy. I very much enjoyed it. I love The Mandalorian. My problems with a lot of the other, like Obi-Wan, like was good, but I didn't like the visual effects. I wish that it had the visual effects budget of any of the Acolyte. Even had incredible visual effects compared to Obi-Wan Kenobi. So I would love for it to be a little bit more evened out. But again, I know the corporate world and budgets and who knows, there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff. It's hard to know, but I think because, and again, the fandom was so toxic when the prequels came out that there was a documentary made called The People versus George Lucas. That was what led to him selling it to Disney, and now there's a lot of people that are like, oh, if he'd only never sold it to Disney, but he did sell it to Disney because of the toxic fandom. So there's a lot of have your cake and eat it too with that that's out there. And I love Jon Favreau. I'll just say that I think Jon Favreau is the greatest thing to ever happen to Star Wars. And as long as he is there and in some capacity, I have hope that they're going to continue to do great projects. And I'm looking forward to the next 3 films. I just as somebody that started a reaction channel just to show people Star Wars for the first time, nothing gives me, my whole life was just showing people movies. And now to be able to show it to people and share those reactions, with the universe out here, and seeing Star Wars through their eyes. And like the reactor I showed all 11 movies to, they loved all of them.
Well, I think a good way to move forward from this on this is with everybody else, we'll go around. Okay. Whoever feels like talking first, just raise your hand. What are you excited? What project that's coming up are you excited about, or what project would you want to be excited about if there isn't one? And the projects that are definitely coming up, for those of you who don't know, Skeleton Crew, Andor season 2, Ahsoka season 2, The Mandalorian and Grogu, then the Rey movie, the Dawn of the Jedi James Mangold movie, and then Patty Jenkins swears she's making a Rogue Squadron movie, but I don't know. Star Wars hasn't confirmed it. But she's like, oh, it's happening. And they're like, let her dream. All right. So does anyone have like a project that they're excited about? Or Jonathan, how about you? Oh, you're muted. You're muted. Okay.
Sorry about that. I'm not excited about any of the projects. But a project I would be excited about, just like someone mentioned earlier, we had 6 films, 40 years. We never got to see Luke Skywalker at full power. We did not get to see him redeemed.
Yeah.
And if they would do that the right way, recast him, Sebastian Stan, have, Matt Hamill in the picture as a Force Ghost or as a narrator.
Luke Skywalker. Like at the end of you want young Luke Skywalker, like at the end of the Mandalorian.
We want to see some of the adventures that were in the books. We want to see him at full power. This is what we've been waiting for our whole lives. And the only time we saw it was, Mandalorian season finale, and so for me, that's a project I would like to see. But with Star Wars, it has to be, you got to hit a home run with the books. It's not like comics. You don't like that run, you just don't read it or forget about it. These are huge, big budget movies, so you got to have great writing and hit a home run with it. But
You could do Mark Hamill like with flashbacks with Sebastian Stan.
Right.
They could both be in it.
right.
Matt, would that be something more along the lines you'd be interested in? Is that something that you're into or no?
I think like the heir to the empire storyline would probably make Jonathan and me very happy if they did that.
Me too.
Now the only caveat to that is anything you do in that time frame leads to the sequel trilogy. So I think that's always going to kind of it's going to create a ceiling to the excitement to a certain extent, unfortunately.
Aubrey?
I think the way to avoid it all is to honestly, I think totally respect what makes Star Wars, like keep the foundation of the universe for sure. But I'm tired of seeing the same movie reskinned, like the same TV show, just recycled. I feel like sometimes it feels like we're in the same spots, the same locations, we're talking about the same people, the same discourse is happening. So I would love to see like where there's so much more of this universe and this little pocket that I feel like we explore every single time we talk Star Wars. I want to see, like, I love that Avatar is doing like new locations every time now. That's what got me more
Fire
invested.
avatars. We got to
Like,
see that.
I'm so excited for that. Like, what?
Yeah.
Like I loved the water Avatar, hated the first Avatar as well, and like changing locations, exploring new parts, giving these characters new struggles, new landscapes is like something that I would invest in. Like new story, we can refer to the old stories and the old lore, but I think like investing in something that's new and doesn't have to be a trilogy, doesn't have to be a 7 movie thing, but can just be a good film that's something new, I think would be worth exploring.
Well, here's an interesting question. Daniel, you said you like the politics side of Star Wars, but it's gotten them into a lot of trouble. How do you think they could possibly go forward with still doing political aspects to their storytelling, but not getting in so much trouble?
That's a great question. I think that's been one of the brilliant points of Star Wars, even from the very first movie when it came out in the 70s, is that it does describe, the rebellion versus the empire, the 99% versus the 1%. People in power and people struggling for a piece of the pie. And I think there's a great idea to continue that theme and that story and talk about political struggles that people have, even in a fictional intergalactic society. Right, we still have those same struggles here on Earth in the United States and in every country. So I don't think it's the political themes that are getting them in trouble. One of the things that always made me a Star Wars fan, and I was going to try to answer one of the other questions too, is that you don't have to have one without the other. It's not a zero-sum game. Star Wars is capable of producing a show or a movie that handles a tough, maybe sometimes even controversial political issue, but can also still give us some good lightsaber fights and some good use of the Force and still make it enjoyable for everybody in the family.
Let's remember why we're here.
Yeah, right.
It's A versus B.
Yeah, go back to basics, right? That's why everybody loves Star Wars. But I don't think those two things are mutually exclusive. Maybe they have been misbalancing those two issues over the past couple series or shows and movies. But I don't think that it's incapable, and I think they are possible moving forward of still handling delicate political issues while still giving the fans what generally we want. Which still includes robots with anxiety. But
right, so Alex had his hand up first and then Carl.
Right, so
Alex first. Yeah.
I kind of had there seems to be a consensus like when it comes to like what people want, and I kind of agree in the sense of like Heir to the Empire, like they're building a new republic in that series. They're building towards like a better tomorrow versus in this, like in the Star Wars series now, it's basically us versus them twice. And that's something like it gets old, it gets stale pretty quickly.
Well, Bob Iger had said they intentionally duplicated the exact same formula from A New Hope because they said, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And unfortunately, we're proven right. Oh, that's pretty funny. Patrick said we have our own Jedi Council here. I think that's so great. We just need the robes, right? And we'll be like, yes, let's investigate that. I think that's important. We wouldn't overlook things. All right, Carl.
So I think that people think that it's politics that's getting in trouble. And that's because people are hijacking the conversation to make it about politics.
Oh, I
And
love this. Yeah.
the thing is, it makes it easy for them to hijack the conversation when you have people on social media like the cast and crew like saying things like, oh, this is going to be the most diverse this, the most diverse that. And it makes it easy for people to start attaching labels to it. And then if it comes out and it is actually bad, those people who don't like those groups say, see, that was bad because of these reasons. When no, really, it was just bad because it's bad. They need for people to kind of pull back a little bit. And Star Wars has talked about politics vaguely, like forever, but it wasn't a problem before. It was only a problem when social media started kind of picking up the buzzword terms, like the DI, stuff like that. That's not a problem with Star Wars. It's just the writing.
Well, that's also very interesting because George Lucas does tons of interviews. He was never going around poking the bear. He was just letting the work speak for what he was trying to say.
Yep.
And he still got bullied out of owning Star Wars. But, I think that is a very good point, Carl. What do you think, Anthony? Don't forget to take yourself off mute. Okay.
All good. Yeah, I think part of the problem that we're currently in this sort of, as Scream would call it, the requel era of Hollywood, is that, when you have these movies that are, celebrating the legacy of what has come before, I feel like part of the issue is that then the original fans feel like the movies, these current films are saying that there was something wrong with them and they need updating or they need to fix this. And I feel like Disney would be smart to try and figure out a way to make it seem as if they're not insulting the fans that have come before while doing what every great sequel should do, which is bring in more people. I do think that there were decisions made in the last 10 years of Star Wars that did sometimes feel like they weren't playing to everybody. And this is from somebody who I might be the only person on the planet who liked all 5 Disney Star Wars movies. I enjoyed them. And I got to marathon them at May 4th. They did all 9 back to back in a theater. And it was great to be in a crowd that was celebrating all 9 of those movies. And I don't know if there are that many. So, oh yeah, they did them all
in a theater. How long did that take?
We got in at like 8 o'clock on the Saturday, and then we were there until 8 o'clock on the Sunday. So it was a full 24 hours. They gave us food and everything. It was a lot of fun. But that's what I think is missing, because I even think these sort of
points, Anthony, that probably really helps some of the movies. That's great.
Sometimes. But I think that we need to celebrate these sort of conversations are what we need, where people, no matter whether you like Star Wars or not, I do think that part of the issue is people taking this stuff so seriously. It's it's a movie, just have fun with it.
I think that to the points that some other people have been making, I think Star Wars is not having fun itself.
Yeah.
I think
they seem afraid.
If they were having fun, it would tell us to have fun. But I think that's a problem. So the poll is that 38% of the people watching are slightly negative about Star Wars right now. 34% are full on negative. So its majority is negative. 21% are slightly positive, and 5% are fully positive. All right. So, boy, I got to tell you, I really believe, I do think if Kathleen Kennedy were instead of being afraid of her fans, if she were to sit down and have an honest conversation, I think it would be so productive. Because, look what we're coming up with. Respect Luke. Don't abandon the politics, but, you don't want to wear it on your sleeve, and have fun. It's okay to have fun still. So
that's what X-Men 97 did great.
Right? I think we're Jedi counseling a pretty darn good. What do you want to say, Matt?
I just wanted to ask a question. When we're talking about not abandoning the politics, do we mean Star Wars politics, or do we mean our politics?
Well, that's a great question. What would your thought be on that?
Well, because Star Wars has in the galaxy, they have politics. And so I thought that's what originally somebody was saying that they liked about Star Wars, which I understand. I think probably people who see our politics get brought into Star Wars might find that unimmersive.
Well, I think so. I guess maybe kind of what you're saying is, Star Wars has always dealt with the broad strokes of politics. But I think these days they're getting so into it that I know I see a lot of this commentary when sometimes I get into politics and people are like, I just want to escape and have a good time. So is that kind of what you're saying? If they get too into it and it's too ripped from the headlines, it's hard to lose yourself.
Yeah, like I think people want to see politics. I don't think necessarily they want to see like our specific societal politics in Star Wars, probably.
I think that's a fair note. What would you counter, Jason?
I just say that the original Star Wars series was a reflection of both World War II and the Vietnam War. And
But not at the time, though, which is interesting about it.
it was,
You know?
yeah, but I'm just saying it's like it was born out of like George Lucas living through growing up, you know, in the aftermath of World War II and watching Vietnam, that was the empire was of Nazi Germany had taken over. And obviously a lot of this was in the Indiana Jones films. Like its politics has always been strongly a part of Star Wars in just influencing where it, you know, what it's comment, because all art is a commentary on the world that we live in, you know, and I think that's just what made Star Wars so special and why it resonated with so many people when it first came out.
Yeah,
Yeah, go
oh,
ahead.
sorry, I respect that actually. That's a really good point. I think where there's a difference possibly between what you're talking about and maybe what I'm talking about with the newer Star Wars is what you're talking about is like the creator was inspired by those events, but it was kind of hidden. It was, you know, a little bit more like, you know, behind the curtain kind of inspiration. I think in instances right now, people are feeling like it's very directly there
Like
and
a
it's not
lecture,
hidden and it's
right?
not kind of derivative of, you know.
What's an example of that?
Well, hold on. This is fascinating to me because Jason, and to Matt's point, and I think what Jason had a great counter. But what's amazing to me is how social media has changed this. Because if when the original Star Wars movies came out, if it had been publicly discussed that they were a reflection of Vietnam, people would have lost their damn minds. You would have maybe a more similar discourse than you do today. Like I've always seen the World War II elements, but this is the first I've ever heard of the Vietnam comparison, and I find it fascinating. But I think that, you know, again, it really much more turns up the dial on the commentary, you know. So maybe George Lucas would have found himself in a similar spot. Anthony, we'll get back to you, Jason. Don't worry. I feel your pain. You guys have all heard my story about saying something and then everybody else wants to jump in and you're like, but I have a rebuttal. I'm sensitive to that. Don't worry, Jason. All right, but Anthony, what do you want to say?
Well, I think George Lucas did kind of find himself in this scenario because, you know, the prequels were definitely more explicit when it came to the political undertones. I mean, you have Padme saying, "This is how liberty dies," and thunderous applause. And I think part of the reaction to assume was people maybe responding more overtly to the political undertones.
That's when George got in trouble.
Yeah, I think it's just important that they feel confident in their ideas. That's what I mean when I think, you know, they're political, because in the end, politics is a lot about perspective. And I think what we were missing was the confidence in their perspective. Around Rise of Skywalker, and I enjoy the film, they just didn't seem like they were proud of what they were making. J.J. Abrams didn't do a commentary track for that movie. And I think that speaks a lot of where we are right now, that they feel like they're following the fans instead of leading the fans forward.
What does J.J. Abrams care about? That's funny. That's really interesting. Like, what makes JJ, what makes you get up in the middle of the night sweating? All right, but I gotta say, Eddie, for a huge Star Wars fan, you're so quiet. You're wearing the shirt and everything. Get in here.
Okay, so basically it's, do you use a feather or do you use a hammer to get your point across? They used a feather in the first three. They used a sledgehammer in the second three, and they just used a nuclear bomb in the last three. That's literally how they got their mindset across.
We've all been Rogue One.
And then when the fans say, no, we don't want this, we want this, they really didn't know, because George Lucas was a Star Wars fan designing it. Disney was not a Star Wars fan. They were a money fan. They really didn't get the pulse of the fans. So they said, okay, what will make the most money? First one, let's redo Star Wars. Let's just do that. Let's do the first one. And then the second one, they said, let's do something completely different. And then they wonder why people had backlash. Then they tried to fix it in Rise of Skywalker. Then Dave Filoni said, stop, just stop. And then he went in a whole different direction. I think Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau have saved Star Wars from further humiliation with fans. Because right now, they're the only thing keeping Star Wars afloat right now. Those two guys, their backs must be hurting because they have the entire franchise on their back right now.
Also, so we're going to talk, we have another topic that we're going to do. And then for the final 10 minutes of the stream, we're going to turn it over to the chat and have them ask questions of the group. Okay. So what I really want to talk about is we got to talk about the Acolyte. All right. So show of hands, who feels that so your choices are, just so you know your choices. Okay. The question I had asked you in advance was, do you agree that the Acolyte was the breaking point for Star Wars? Right. So the options are yes for you personally, yes for then there's yes for overall fans, like maybe not necessarily for you, but you see that you recognize that there's a problem. No, it was already broken before the Acolyte even showed up. And then the fourth choice is, what are you talking about? Everything's fine. Okay. So raise your hand if you think that the Acolyte broke Star Wars for you personally. Oh, how nice. Oh, that's fascinating. Look at all of us, so reasonable. All right, who says, well, it wasn't horrible for me, but I acknowledge that it might have broken Star Wars as a franchise. Okay, Carl. Just Carl, and probably me. Okay. Oh, and Fran. Okay. Then who feels that it was already broken before we even started? Oh, wow. Oh gosh. Oh my goodness. So hold on. Keep your hands up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. More than half feel it was already broken. Okay. Really quickly. Keep your hands up so I know who to ask. Oh, wait, we got another. Wait, Eddie jumped in. Okay. No, you can stay in, Eddie. Okay. So just keep your hands up if this is you. So you feel it was broken beforehand. All right. So we're going to go around. People have their hands up. Jonathan, keep your hands up. Anthony, what broke it if it wasn't the Acolyte? Just say the title. Just say the project.
Disney Plus in general.
Okay. Jonathan, what was it that broke it?
The Last Jedi.
Okay. Jason?
Ewoks.
Alex's family has to differ with that one. Okay, so Alex, you feel it broke it too?
Yes.
What was it? What was it?
Last Jedi.
Aubrey?
Solo.
Oh, that's a good one. Matthew, what do you think?
The Last Jedi.
So probably it is Rian Johnson's fault. Rian Johnson. Oh, Carl.
I changed my mind. Mine's going to be Last Jedi too. Although I love Rian Johnson.
Oh, I liked that movie. I acknowledged when I was covering
yeah.
it that it did considerable damage. Fran, I didn't ask you yet, Fran. Okay, Fran.
I changed my mind too. I think Solo definitely did number on Star
I love it. Everyone's like, yes. All right, so who's the holdout? Oh, Eddie. Yeah, and Eddie?
Andor.
Oh, Eddie,
Andor.
everybody was loving you, Eddie. What happened? Why Andor?
Too political. I'm not a political guy. I need action. That was just too talky. I don't do talky.
No, I would agree with you, Eddie. I only liked 50% of Andor, and I thought the other 50% was pretty freaking boring. All right, Daniel, you're the lone holdout. You're the only one. You're the only one, Daniel, who thinks that it's not broken.
I was waiting for option 4. That's me.
Okay.
Yeah, I loved The Acolyte. Sorry, I know it's probably a hard truth for some people. My family loved it. We had a great time.
I think that's great. We want to hear from you, Daniel.
We had a great discussion. I'm not saying by any means is it the best production that Star Wars has ever put out there. But a lot of people have talked about watching Star Wars with their family. The Acolyte continued to be for me an opportunity to sit down with my parents, particularly my dad, and watch Star Wars. And we talked about it every week. And no, it was not the best, but we enjoyed it. And I really didn't see that as a breaking point from my perspective. My family, my friends liked it.
Valid. All right. So most of us feel, though, Daniel, I certainly respect where you're coming from, and it makes me feel so nice that your family was able to sit down and enjoy it together. I think that's how true fans are made, enjoying it with people that you love, because that's how I became a fan of film and TV. But I want to ask, so since most of us feel that it's broken, I want to go around and we'll answer these. So try to keep your answers, at a good length, okay? Because we want to go to the chat questions. But I want to know, how long do you think it will take to fix Star Wars? Okay. And because I promised him, Jason, you can go first.
Well, I just wanted to clarify my answer on Ewoks. I love Ewoks. I actually enjoyed the Acolyte more than most people.
You're in trouble, Jason. That's right. Yeah, he loves Ewoks. I was just making a joke.
I'm just going to tell you that as I remember, there was a lot of people that hated the Ewoks. And I just remembered as long as I've loved Star Wars and people love Star Wars, they've also hated Star Wars. And I just think that there's always been one thing.
So that's why you said that, because I do remember people complaining.
I think from the fandom, I think that's when the fandom started to splinter. and I've just witnessed it my entire life as projects have come out, the highs and lows. Darth Maul was amazing. Jar Jar was awful. Anakin Skywalker. There's
I like
just
that, Jason.
Jango
You're
Fett
like,
was cool.
this is
Anakin
nothing
was
new.
Yeah.
We've been
This is
fighting
not-
this whole time.
this war has been going on since I was 3 years old.
But
So
do you think social media has made it worse?
yeah, I just think it's given. I think the fans have always been toxic in that sense, passionate. I'll even just say it's like religion, and we all have different denominations of Star Wars that we follow, and the conversation is good and it's out there. And I think they've always George Lucas always heard, even when the first Star Wars came out, there was a lot of there was no diversity in that movie. He added Lando Calrissian. By the time you get to Return of the Jedi, you have Asian African American rebel pilots in the final space battle. They've always listened and tried to fix. Jar Jar was not
they're listening now, though.
Yeah. Huh?
Would you say that they're listening now?
I think they are. I think they absolutely are. I think they're trying different things, and I think they shouldn't be afraid to try things like the Acolyte. But if it doesn't resonate, they should move on.
I think if they were listening, they'd have one crowd pleaser in there. And I think it would help everything else.
I think if
they had one crowd pleaser, it would help all the other projects because people.
I agree.
Like,
I agree. They need a big win. That's for sure. And
all
hopefully,
right,
the Mandalorian movie is that.
I hope so. I think it has a good shot. I do want to say, I saw Dre Films had a good question and said, do you think that they need to reboot Star Wars? Could it even be rebooted? So I look at Jason, he's like, how dare you? All right. So when we go around, quick answers, so we have enough time to get to the chat. Okay. We're going to go around. Anthony, you're first. Okay. How long would it take to save Star Wars? And briefly, what would that entail? Like bullet points. Let's go.
Yeah, I think a hard break for a little while. I don't think it can really feel fresh if we keep having these new projects. And then you have a big new movie, something like Rogue One, that of course is attached to the past, but new characters. I think The Acolyte was going in the right direction with new characters, but I think it still tethered itself too much. And get off Disney Plus. It's so much easier to turn off Disney Plus than to walk out of a theater. And I think that has been hurting Star Wars. It's too flippant a viewing experience. And then you could be tweeting while you're watching. No.
All right, Jonathan.
No rebooting. Get great writers. Stop tinkering with canon. If you're going to bring new characters in, bring them with one of the old characters and respect the old material. But I do think it can be revived. People are still going to watch it.
All right, Jason, you've already gone a little bit, Jason, so keep it brief, please.
I would just say I'd like to go 1,000 years in the past and 1,000 years in the future. Let's get out of current Star Wars and let's explore other places, and that would be the solution.
Let me ask you a quick question. I'm sorry, I have to do it. Jason, if they go 1,000 years in the past and the future, do you think it should feel more different than the Acolyte? Because to me, the Acolyte felt like current Star Wars stuff.
The Acolyte felt like prequel era Star Wars, and I think the technology is very slow, and I think it worked in that that's how it was. But I would love to see something like Excalibur level Star Wars, the John Boorman film with Dawn of the Jedi. I trust James Mangold with what he did with Logan that he'll do that. And with the future of Star Wars, literally, I would love to see, a long time ago instead of a long time ago. It's just
someone today whose ancestor was a Skywalker. All right, Aubrey.
I think that they should really bring in some more exciting talent behind the camera. I think they just struggle finding, strong risk takers. I feel like Lucasfilms especially gets the scraps of new exciting talent. Like Disney will snatch them up, Marvel will snatch them up, other franchises. And I think we need really strong visionaries that know what they want and know how to make films that appeal to all moviegoers and just abandon what they're trying to do of creating just repeats of stuff they've already done. I am tired of hearing about content that has 5 iterations within the Star Wars universe. I think they need some new, exciting, strong stories.
Awesome. All right, Daniel.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and agree with most people here. No reboot for me. I would keep going right forward with what they're doing with. I made a note about this because just like we talked about comic books and other TV shows, not every series is going to be made to appeal to everybody. So I think it's okay that some shows that Star Wars releases aren't necessarily mass appeal. They do need to keep that in mind, But I think it's okay to enjoy some shows and not enjoy the next and keep moving forward. I think they should keep telling individual unique stories and see where those markets hit.
I think the budget needs to be an issue for those smaller more niche projects, because then they would not be so bad, come across poorly. All right,
Sure.
Matthew, what do you think?
I think one of the most important things for people, and I actually think Jason kind of weirdly touched on it earlier, about how people almost have like kind of a religious love for the franchise. And that's different than like ordinary stories. I think it's important, I think, to realize that one of the most important ingredients that go into Star Wars is knowing that George Lucas was on some level kind of making a religious statement, not like any explicit religion in our culture, but like a religious statement about the existence of good and evil, the redemption of Vader's soul, the sacrifice Luke was willing to make when he threw his lightsaber away in front of Palpatine. Like those are the powerful moments that I think what made Star Wars into the brand and into the franchise that it is today. And I think that's the core element that made it popular. Then there's also the ships, and then there's the blasters and the different lightsaber hilts and all that gear stuff that a lot of the guys really, really like as well. I think in order for Star Wars to get back on track, they need to stop retreading the same territory, go 500 years into the future, and maybe start with Grogu as the new Yoda figure and just start fresh with a new story, or veer back into KOTOR and go with the Old Republic or something like that. But and also maybe hire a master storyteller, I don't know, like a Brandon Sanderson like figure to maybe write the world creating and the story and all that stuff. And I think if they did all that, they'd be back on track again.
These are just such great ideas. We're just giving them to Kathleen for free. I mean, that sounds fantastic. And I like
let me know if I can invoice her, I will.
And I like the commentary that you're saying about the religious aspects. I hadn't thought of that, but that does reflect a lot into medieval knights storytelling, which people have made a comparison. And I have seen, when you say that, it reminds me of some of the critiques I've seen about faith and good versus evil and redemption. And I think, could you say like current Star Wars is, quote unquote, godless? I think you could argue that, and so that's really fascinating. Okay, next up, Eddie, you're up, Eddie.
So since we can't use a time machine to never hire Kathleen Kennedy or use all of the old books, the extended universe, as actual Star Wars, I would ride Dave Filoni till the wheels fell off. That's how I would fix Star Wars.
That's their plan. I think that is the plan.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Yeah, I think he's crucial for them. Okay, Alex.
I agree with him vehemently, like fire Kathleen Kennedy. And it feels like at the moment that Star Wars is being driven by two people and they're trying to take it two different directions and they're low on gas at the moment. So they need to like choose a direction, like choose the good direction, hopefully. And like my personal opinion is Dave Filoni. Yeah.
That's such a great metaphor, though, Alex. I love that idea of like, we're not out of gas, but we're so low that we better pick a close location and make sure that we get to it. That's fantastic. All right, Carl.
Okay, so as much as I would really love to see the Old Republic, I think you risk doing more damage because you're going back into the past. You're still in the same continuity, playing by the same rules. I think that if they did that, they'd get a lot of backlash. I think they already have the answer. Everybody loves the animation. Like everybody's talking about Filoni. For the most part, the animation's been pretty good. It's just not enough people are watching it because it's not live action.
Yeah, the animation's incredible. Yeah,
it is. And what they did right with the animation, in particular, one of the best things they've done was Visions. I love Visions. I love the stories. Not all of them hit, but it's great, and it gives them some place to play. They need a live action version of Visions where they can play, and maybe this takes place in the canon universe. Maybe this is something somewhere else. You're playing by different rules, but you can play, and then you can build up a universe there, a new universe. You're not tied to the rules of this one, not the Skywalkers.
It's like a testing ground with Visions, right?
Yep. They need
to great idea. At
branch
first, I
out.
wasn't with you because I didn't like Visions. But when you say about moving it to live action, then I'm like, now we're cooking. This is
we all hate multiverses because like multiverses brings all this, baggage in with it. They kind of need a multiverse. They need someplace else where they can play with similar characters.
Not the main thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to tie together with anything else.
Oh, that's actually brilliant. And then, but Fran, you're last there, Fran.
Okay. Wow, this is a very complicated question to answer.
Well, you gotta be quick
I
because we want to
think,
get the questions from the group.
I mean, basically, I think that there's no way that they are fixing anything with this new slate that they have. So I think it's gonna take a few years probably. But I think that they just have to go in the direction of Dave Filoni. I think that's what has worked the most. And from an outside perspective, that's what I've seen on Twitter mostly, which is where most
But
of
I
the
think
discourse happens.
Filoni might
Uh,
need to come up with a new story though, because like I think Ahsoka didn't quite work out.
oh yeah.
Because you
Oh
required
yeah.
you to have watched all the animation. But so I think I'd be like, Filoni, tell a new story.
Yeah. In terms
And
of story, I
I have
think
the Star Wars film, right? I mean, it's not, I don't think Mandalorian and Grogu isn't his, is that his film? I don't recall. I think
no
maybe it
idea.
is, right? Yeah, it
It
Jon
is.
is.
Favreau, I think.
Yeah, him and Favreau, but I know that he, Mangold, and that's another female director are the next three directors of the films. Supposedly, they often change their mind at the last minute. All right, so what a group! I mean, I told you guys this was going to be great. I think the BTT community continues to be just such an impressive group. I am just, as I always say, I am just so blown away and fortunate that my videos attract such phenomenal people. And I just want to, before we get to the audience questions, I just want to thank everybody who's on screen, who's just could not have done a nicer job with this chat. I mean, I just love you guys so much. I mean, wow. Okay, like I'm just so happy with this. All right, so let's get a couple of questions. We're going to go for about 5 minutes because we're already over an hour. How time flies when you're debating. So does anybody have any questions from the group? We're just going to watch the chat here. I'm watching it. I can see Fran's on the chat. I saw Fran there saying hi to peeps. Let's see here.
Honestly,
Patrick
I do have a
says-
question. Oh.
Well, hold on. Patrick says, does anyone on the panel think Kathleen Kennedy deserves more time to turn things around? Ooh, that's a great question, Patrick. Okay, show of hands. Who thinks Kathleen, give her a couple, let's see, maybe she could turn around a little bit more. Aubrey, Anthony, maybe, Daniel. All right, that's very nice of you. Okay, I would unfortunately say no, because she's just had so much time at this point. And if she was trying a lot of different things and she was getting close, I'd be like, okay, she's almost there. But I think she's actually getting worse, in my opinion. But Patrick, that was a great question. Let's see here. Let's see. I'm glad you enjoyed the conversation, Will. Devin, let me go back and see if I can see your super chat. Wanda's attorney. Hi, Wanda says, are there any upcoming projects that give you hope for the future of the franchise? We already kind of touched on that. And we talked about the future of the franchise, and the answer pretty much was no from everybody. Right? Let's see here. I'm going back. Devin, I don't see your comment there. I think if you ask a little bit too early, it's hard for me to see it. So I can really only do the ones that are going up now. Oh, let's see here.
I kind of have a question for the chat.
Okay, Fran. Fire away.
As a right now a non-fan, what project do you think is the closest to the direction that you would like the franchise to go in?
Yeah, what upcoming project are you guys excited about? We can't do a poll because there aren't enough options, but just write it in for the chat. We can just see what it says. What's just what upcoming projects look good to the people in the chat? Let's just see it.
Yeah.
So hold on. There's a delay. They're coming now. We got okay. Eliza says Andor.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Andor also from Josh. Good thing Andor's coming up soon. Astronomy is same. Joey though says Mando and Grogu. You want more Rogue One, Leo? Is that what you're talking about? Oh, Words and Handles voting for High Republic stories there, Jason. They want to go back in time too. Let's see here. Mr. Magic wants, I don't know if Mr. Magic is, no, I know Mr. Magic's genuine. Wants more Sith and witches. I was excited. I wish the show had turned out better. I'm seeing a lot of Andor and Mando and Grogu love. I have high hopes for The Mandalorian and Grogu as a movie. Oh,
Jon Favreau is the director of that.
Oh, that's one. Thank you, Jason. What did you want to say, Anthony? So that means that would not be Dave Filoni's movie. That means
He
doing
is
something
writing it
else.
though, I believe.
But he's directing something else,
Um,
that means.
Are the rumors
Okay.
true about Favreau and Kathleen Kennedy like not liking each other behind the scenes? Is that like
Look at
a
Matthew.
true
I love
thing?
it. Yeah. So you want to know if Kathleen Kennedy and Jon Favreau don't like each other?
That's what I've heard.
Have,
That's what I've
I
heard on the
haven't heard
internet.
anything specifically about them disliking each other.
Well,
I
there's this
think,
picture of them kind of sneering at each other that I saw once. And then
Yeah.
everyone was basically saying that he was trying to like take Star Wars into a direction the fans would like more. She was trying to stop him. That doesn't sound like that's probably true. I'm guessing studio heads have full control over everything, but
yeah, I would guess that they probably are very at odds at what they want for Star Wars. It seems to me, based on her what way she's conducted herself in interviews and the way projects that she's chosen, that Kathleen Kennedy has like sometimes like some other female creators, I'm sad to say, has wanted to change Star Wars into something that would interest her more. And I think that Jon Favreau is very happy with the way it was and is. And so I'm sure Jon Favreau is a very good company guy. You know, he's a good team player. He has worked at Disney for a while now, first at Marvel, now at Star Wars. So I'm sure he wouldn't get into a fight with anybody, you know, but I would say that I suspect he'll be around longer than probably Kathleen will be, you know, and I'm sure they're all being very, very professional, you know, although you never know, someone might have caught a true moment with a photo, right? When maybe the curtain dropped for just a second. You never know. So let's see here. Alex, what did you want to say? That's a good point. Any of you guys, after Alex, if you guys have questions or comments that you want to bring up, well, we can do that for a few quick minutes. We're going to wrap in about 9-10 minutes. All right. So Alex, go ahead.
Something Josh Love movie said, like short run times for Disney Plus. That's kind of a reoccurring thing that has been happening. Something that you've talked about, like for example, with WandaVision, with other Disney Plus Marvel shows. Like that's kind of been an issue, like short time to tell a story.
Yeah. It's ridiculous.
Big time.
I can't believe they haven't changed that. It's like every other streaming service is doing the same thing. I don't understand why they're doing that. Does anybody else in the group have any questions or from this group? Any questions? Or
I just have a quick
Anthony?
question.
Hold on. Who is Aubrey? You're next. Okay. So Anthony, you're then Aubrey. Anthony?
Well, I just want to mention, because I think we're bringing up the future, that I also think that don't run away from the sequels. Because I think there could have been that inclination to run from the prequels, but then Dave Filoni went full in. And now I think he really saved the yeah, so I think we mentioned it earlier, maybe like a movie in between. If you had like young Leia, young Luke, maybe the birth of Kylo Ren. Like I think there are places there to fill in, and maybe that's a way to like still bring the fans in with the characters they love, but connect it and bring in those new fans. I think that acting as if we've had a blemish for 10 years is not the way to go forward, is how I feel. And I'm wondering if people agree with that. Like Dave Filoni, the space between, other than going completely far away.
Yeah, we'd love to hear in the comments if you guys think, you know, like just completely abandon the new movies. I would agree with you though. I mean, I was interested in the idea of a forced dyad with Rey and Kylo, and I liked Rey. I think Rey never got a fair chance because she was always competing with the OG characters, and some of the decisions they made for her character were a little stupid. But I don't think that was Daisy Ridley's fault. I thought she was a very compelling Jedi.
I think everybody liked her in the first movie.
Right?
I think everybody liked her. Everybody liked Finn. Like we liked those characters. It wasn't, you know, because it was like a girl or just, you know, a black dude. Like these people are fine. We like these people, but like everybody started hating on it after The Last Jedi, and it's because of the story. And I felt like at the time I felt gaslit because like everybody that was watching was like, "Oh my god, this movie is so good." And when I watched that movie, it like broke my heart. Like seeing, I know that sounds strong, but it really did. Seeing like what had happened and not getting like the cool Luke moment and just it
No, I see how many of you are. I see how many of you are Luke fans, and that was clearly a big mistake on Star Wars' part. Just a moment, Anthony. Aubrey, you're next.
This is a question for chat too, for after, but for you guys to hear, moving forward with these movies, if we have like a great writer, let's say a great director, dream project, the story's there, these projects still do have to feature different voices in these roles. They do have to be diverse in some ways. What are some ways that you guys think these projects and these movies can still stay true to Star Wars and still feel like something you can connect with, but still feature different characters of different backgrounds, since Star Wars is ultimately something that every pocket of the world connects with in some way. And I'm really curious because I never necessarily hear examples. I just hear more like we feel stuff is being forced, or I feel like plot points are targeted, but I really would love to hear like clear directions or clear like projects that you guys think really push that and how you would pivot into an alternative solution. Because like Amandla is an incredible actress. How did the Acolyte happen?
I feel bad for how things went for her.
Oh.
Daniel, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, because I think that was a great question and a great point. I think Disney should still, and Star Wars overall, should totally still continue to embrace the importance of telling anybody's story from the perspective of different groups and different types of people, right? We've talked about it on this channel many, many times. Everybody deserves to tune into a Star Wars show and be able to see themselves represented in that series, in that show. So I don't think they should shy away from that. I do want to see more stories told from people of color, from women, from the LGBTQ community. I want to see more representation from all of these groups in major films and major TV shows. I don't think that necessarily has to take away from authentic storytelling, right? Still, give me a great lightsaber battle. I don't care who it's between. I just want to see a great lightsaber battle. So
That's why I like Carl's idea with live action visions, because you could test and see what character people spark to. Because it's sometimes, especially when you're breaking new ground, Hollywood doesn't know what's going to work. And so unfortunately, Star Wars is stuck taking such big swings with $200 or $150 million budgets. But if they could play in a more in a space that wasn't so expensive, they would really be able to then see who takes off and then be able to get behind those characters in a big way. So, but yeah, I think that's really cool. Jonathan, what did you want to say?
Just one thing too, just because I think it's an important part of the diverse conversation. When I say like diverse, I don't mean like I need to see a Black story, a Black history represented in Star Wars. And I think sometimes we conflate like diversity being issues about our like experiences. I need to see myself represented, but I more just was meaning like, yeah, are we talking more about like, we don't want to see like necessarily like women-led stories? Like, I don't want to see a story in Star Wars are we talking about that? Or are we talking just about like the way they've handled diversity in the past, where it does feel like they're trying to tell a specific narrative or they're trying to tell a story? Because I sometimes, as a diverse fan, can't tell like, are we talking about lack of like wanting to see a specific narrative, like how Matthew was saying earlier, like I don't want to feel like it's too strongly swaying in one or the other, or is there another issue that I'm not seeing? I just had to clarify that because I didn't want it to be like I got to be represented, or Star Wars fans of color need to see themselves,
Well, yeah. Well, I think a lot of times people in these conversations will say, oh, well, anyone can see themselves in anyone, which you're touching on, Aubrey. However, I think, I think what the counterpoint some people make is this, well, then why can't everybody go and see themselves in that type of person? And I think, so I think that, that's a very complex conversation, Aubrey. I don't know if we're gonna be able to cover it on this stream. You're like, oh, we're at the hour 15 mark. Hold on. Matthew, you wanted to say something about this? And I know that you've been talking about some of this stuff, so I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think the diversity conversation around Star Wars, I think all the things that are like very, at least from like, because I've been in the fandom for a really long time, all the core components that I could list out that are like what make fans really love Star Wars, or at least the things that I understand. There's nothing about any of those things that are diametrically opposed to inclusion or diversity at all. Like all those things can exist together. I think where things have gone wrong for Disney in this conversation is these people don't understand those core components that I think fans want, but then they also market themselves in the marketing side. They really make it, they almost say like the stakes of this project has these political causes on the line. And then when the pushback happens and the anger occurs, and then people feel like they're being smeared because they're like, no, that's not why I don't like this. It's not because I don't agree with these political causes, or not because I don't want to include people. It's just because you're not giving me what I want. And then there are bad actors too that also are using this as a political football on the other side. And that's what this whole entire franchise has turned into now, as a political football. But if Disney could gather those core components that fans love, marry them up with inclusion and diversity. I think that there's nothing like, I think the Star Wars galaxy actually lends itself to very easily make that easy without having to stretch too far from a storytelling standpoint.
Well, that's interesting what you're saying, Matthew, because you're almost saying that while there are some groups on one side that are weaponizing it, the people who are making the stories right now are almost on the other side and are just as guilty of weaponizing it. Okay, so we just want to tell great stories, and you could certainly tell, and those could be diverse stories. Jonathan, were you going to say something? I know you got cut off.
Yep. So as far as diversity, if you have a great story, it could be organic. Diversity should be organic to the story. And so I think where this series, the issue got caught up was when the actors and the leads, and they give a messaging of, hey, we're pushing diversity first. Well, the story should be first. And you got to tell a great story, because it's not like back in the day with Star Wars. Anything you do wrong is amplified due to social media. You got to make sure you're hitting home runs every time, which means you have to kind of put everything forward to get a great story. You got to know you got to have a home run to be successful, because it's going to get amplified. So for me, I think great writing.
All right, so we're going to wrap up, and what that's going to entail, don't worry, everyone's going to have, and I'm going to time you because I want to be nice about it, but I have to also make sure that the stream doesn't go on for too long. So you have 1 minute, and I'll be very nice about it. You have 1 minute to say your last thought that you want to make sure that you get into this stream. Okay? All right, so we're going to start with Anthony. Anthony goes first. We're going on the order of what the people are seeing. All right, Anthony, you got 1 minute. You ready?
Let's go.
Go, Anthony.
Yeah, I want to mention a Hugh Laurie quote where he said that apathy is the greatest villain of all, and that in the end, passion is wonderful, and it reminds us why we love stories and everything. And I think we got to lean back into that. We got to lean into the passion, and I think we have to celebrate, all the fandoms. I think that the religious analogy, I think, is really smart. I think that's why Last Jedi, even though I love it, offended people, because they were basically saying, here, look, God, he's not as great as you think he is. I've never looked at it that way. So I think Star Wars needs to understand they have something maybe a little bit more powerful than just a regular blockbuster. It means so much more. And I think once they get that, I think we'll be hopefully on a higher path forward. So yeah, thank you, Grace, for this conversation, by the way. It was wonderful to be here.
Oh, I'm so glad to have you, Anthony. And look at you, you're even 10 seconds under. So nice. All right. Next up is Jonathan. All right, you ready, Jonathan?
Yes, I'm ready. Again, appreciate you having me. My favorite moment in Star Wars, Return of the Jedi, the Ewok song, the celebration at the end. I felt like I had beaten the Empire. So I just wanted to bring that out there. As a Star Wars fan, that was a moment that stuck with me forever. So I want to feel that again.
Oh, that's so nice. All right, next up, Jason. Go.
Grace, I just want to say thank you so much for organizing this and letting me participate. It's been amazing talking to everybody here and listening to all these incredible, diverse opinions. One thing, when it comes to diversity, my favorite character growing up was actually Lando Calrissian, and I never saw race. I just saw this amazing character. And I think an amazing character will make you see past a lot of that stuff. I will say, go listen to the Daisy Ridley Smartless interview with some great insight onto her movie that's coming up. And lastly, Matt, read the book Easy Riders Raging Bull by Peter Biskin if you want to understand studio politics and how volatile it can kind of be when millions of dollars are on the line. And also, there's a great chapter that details the creation of Star Wars. Thank you, everybody.
That's very nice of you. Okay. All right. Next up is Aubrey. Go.
Thank you guys so much, Grace. This was so much fun. And thank you guys, especially for that last part. So many great points that you guys were making about the diversity, and especially as someone who is diverse and is in the industry making films, actively trying to figure out how to appeal to everybody. It is so interesting and so I appreciate it so much hearing these perspectives. And I think especially with Star Wars, I just love how it's so culturally something we can all connect with, and how it just really does bring everyone together, regardless of your age or whatever. And I think that's just so fun. So we got to stick with the guys and stick with the community. And it's great to be here.
Oh, awesome. Everybody's so nice. All right, Daniel, go.
All right. Yeah, again, it was an honor and privilege to be here tonight with all of you to discuss everybody in the chat, and everybody on the videos tonight. I just hope that we take away talking about Star Wars, that I hope it continues the magic that it's always provided for so many of us. Again, we've a lot talked about family. Many of us grew up with watching Star Wars. It's something we still watch. And it's meant to be the magic of Disney is it's something that it's grandma and grandpa and mom and dad can watch with the grandkids, and everybody should be brought together. And I hope that they can recreate that magic even with better storytelling and more lightsaber fights. I'm still looking for those.
Me too,
But
Daniel.
I hope that's the magic they can recreate and that the joy that brings everybody moving forward.
Awesome. All right, Matt, you're up.
Yeah, so there are certain stories and franchises that are special. They're head and shoulders above the rest. Star Wars is one, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter. There's things like that that come to that I think are just they're just above the others. And when you try to break down what is it about those franchises and those stories that make them special, I think it really is the this what those creators tap into is kind of this belief in good and evil, like is in like the real forces, they do truly exist, and they create that struggle, that moment that has all those little payoffs along the way, and then the giant or the setups along the way, and then the giant payoffs that occur. I think if Disney wants to fix Star Wars, if they want to bring that franchise back to its full potential, they need to maybe you don't need to deify George Lucas, but understand that he tapped into something pretty special, and you have to want to create that and also expand it and deliver it to more people. And obviously you want to make it inclusive as well.
Awesome. Perfect. I love it. All right, Eddie, go.
Okay, so Star Wars is not alone as far as franchises that have ups and downs. I come from the Star Trek community. We have Star Trek Picard season 3 with Terry Matalas. We also have Star Trek Discovery. So everybody has problems, but there's always hope to someone will come along in the future and take this franchise to the next level. Just have faith that the writers who are responsible and the actors who are responsible for portraying the characters and showing you stories are going to rise again, and you will appreciate the Star Wars universe again.
I like that, Eddie. So maybe don't destroy it while we're waiting. So someone can still show up. Don't leave it as smoldering ruins or no one's going to come. Okay, Alex.
I just wanted to say you built an amazing community, Grace. So like props to you for doing this and like for doing all like yeah, it's just beyond words, you know? And then when it comes to Star Wars, like when it comes to like movies in general, like diversity, we want inclusion, but we want it good. Like we want it to not be like a carbon cop, like just like cut and paste. We want it to have value. We want it to have worth. Yeah.
I love that. I love it. All right, Carl.
So if you want to see what everybody really wanted with Luke, nobody saw it, but Battlefront 2, like the campaign for it, there's a 10-minute snippet of Luke Skywalker in it that was amazing. And that's what everybody wanted. If you have a chance, go check that out. Aside from that, I think that they talk too much before the movie comes out. They really need to let people make up their minds about what the movie is before they start talking about this is what I'm referring to. This is how I feel about things. Let people decide whether or not it's bad and good before, like afterwards. Otherwise, you're just giving people ammunition. You know what I mean? Lastly, I really stop continuing everything. Tell in one season a full story, please. I love like the idea of Ahsoka, but I didn't need that to stop there. Like it. What if they don't get a second season? You know what I mean? Like I don't know.
Exactly. Look what happened to the Acolyte.
Yep.
All right, and then bring us home, Fran.
I'll bring you home. Okay, first of all, thank you for having me again. Truly an amazing experience, really. And I think from now on, I'll be trying to get into Star Wars more, having heard how much it means to all of you.
Turn Fran into a fan.
You have turned me. And lastly, I want to thank the chat. They have been really nice. Somebody said they loved my expressions. I thought that was really funny. So yeah, I'm gonna give one last little surprise for the stream.
All right. Oh, look at Fran, 50 memberships. That's incredibly generous of you. Thank you. You helped the channel and, you know, you made it rain. You made it rain in the
Happy
chat.
to help.
And that was very clever. I'm going to suggest to people going forward, they have the chat up while we do this so they can join in. So, you know, you're really on top of things there, Fran. I'm really impressed with that. Wow, that was such a nice thing to do. Everybody. And by the way, again, round of applause to everybody who joined, because this was a brave thing to do. I mean, you see what I go through. It's rough out here, you know? And so you guys all put yourself out here and you shared strong opinions but you truly believed in them. And I got to say, it made for I thought it was like a fascinating conversation, and you guys made me think a lot of stuff that I hadn't thought of before. And this was just like a new level of my being able to interact with you and for other people being able to hear all these different opinions. And going forward, we're going to continue to do this. You could be as I said, one of you could be in a square going forward. We're going to do this for the big brands. We're going to do it for news stories. I'm not sure how often we'll do it, but we'll at least be doing it once a month. But maybe we'll even do it more if people really like it. So if you like it, let me know. So, because that, you know, again, I listen to you guys. And so, but I have to say, you guys have set a high bar for anyone who shows up on the show after this, because you guys were really wonderful. And I'm sure at some point you got, what'd you say?
You set the bar, Grace.
Oh,
yeah, you did.
Say, Jason, that was very nice of you. And I have to say, someone with another channel, it was nice having you on here. You were a gentleman, and it was really nice. And so everybody was great. And I'm sure at some point we'll see all of you again. All right. And thank you for being, by the way, members are the ones who can participate on camera. And so I appreciate you guys being members as well. That really means a lot to me. All right. Okay, everybody, wave goodbye. I'm going to take us off the live.
Goodbye, everyone.
May the force be with you.
Always.
Clear.